I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Tuesday, January the 9th, and we just lost ground in the cash fat cattle market on Friday, and it's only Monday, and here we are losing more ground already, which you hardly ever see, but sure enough happening this week. And I guess, you know, your hedged feeders just figure with things kind of headed south right now that they may be better off taking a little bit of basis here while it's available earlier in the week, and it might be easier to take 120 on a Monday than it is to maybe take $1.15 later on in the week. But look at the board on Monday. February live cattle was down $2.02 to end the day at 117.22. April down $1.55, and now a $2 premium to what the spot market is at 119.30. March feeder cattle, and the feeder cattle board held up a whole lot better than what the fats did, but March feeder cattle down just a nickel at 141.92, and January spot feeder cattle contract down 17 cents to end the day at 146.45, and still several dollars behind what the cash market is and what your index levels are sitting at. But on the fats, let's go ahead and talk about the ones that sold this week already on a Monday. But started out late in the morning having a few sales there, and either their brokers telling them to do that or their financial lenders telling them to do that. But packers were needing cattle and come out and started bidding, and guys just took it because they're actually a few pennies better off here on Monday than they were on Friday because of the way the board was with their basis. But you look at some cattle sold in Texas and Kansas and Colorado, Wyoming, western Nebraska. We didn't have any eastern Nebraska sales or Iowa sales out of the 5-area feeding region that we saw reported, but 120 on a live basis. That's $1 to $2 lower than last week, and normally that 120 would come back at 189, but no better than some of these cattle are having a dressing percentage with a lot of tag on them. We've had some wet weather and some cold wet weather, and there's stuff hanging on those cattle. That's probably a better price than that, maybe 190 or a little bit better than that, but still a lot under what your cutout values are at. A larger loss on your trend than what your live cattle are trading if you look at last week's dress trade. But let's look at last week's weighted averages on the trade that happened last week and mostly on Friday. 85,800 head in the 5-area feeding region. Your live sales range from 121 to 122, some 121 and a half in there, with a weighted average of steers, of live steers at 121.61, down $1.23. Your dress trade on steers and heifers was 193 to 195, but your weighted average on dress steers at 193.83, down 67 cents compared to the weighted average of previous week. Box beef cutout values gained ground again here, and they were up big, have been all year so far, and these packers just get it going and coming. They're buying cattle cheaper, they're selling their product higher, and these things are really going good. There wasn't very many days, if days, it wasn't very many minutes that they weren't in the black last calendar year, and they're starting off this year getting some big margins built up with choice cutouts ending the day on Monday at 210.20, up 69 cents. Selects at 203.37, up $1.05, and you figure cattle are bringing around 189, 190. But let's look at your feeder markets on Monday. Your real-time index, which is on Beef Market Central, it's a 7-day moving average from steers weighing 7 to 900 pounds, just like your CME index. And it ended the day on Monday at 153.17, down 82 cents from where it wound up at the end of last week's trading. Oklahoma City at Oklahoma National Stockyards, big run there, 12,000 head. Good to see them having a big run like that. They haven't had a sale for a long time. Compared to 3 weeks ago, most of your feeder weights 600 to 900 pounders were $2 to $5 higher compared to 3 weeks ago, although that market is really lower than the early sales we saw this year as soon as business opened back up. But in Oklahoma City, they haven't had a sale for 3 weeks. They did note that bigger steers weighing over 900 pounds were steady to lower than the trading the 3 weeks ago before Christmas there. But and the calves were kind of unevenly steady, and it was an early call because of 12,000 head. They sold cattle way up into the night in Oklahoma City. Joplin had a big run also. I was there in Joplin and watched the sale for a while. 8,700 head there. They start so early and get to rolling so good, but by 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they had already sold 7,500 head, and they still wrapped that 8,700 head up before dark. But you compared to last week, because they had a regular sale last week and a special last week, a weanback special on Thursday. But you compare it to the regular sale they had last week, which was held on Tuesday because of New Year's Day. Most of your feeder weights there were $2 to $5 lower, and the market's lower than it was last week. We really kicked the year off with a bang, and we're backing off of that. Cattle weighing over 800 pounds, your steers were $5 to $6 lower. And you wonder why those bigger cattle are selling that much lower, because those are the best ones that have a chance of coming out, because they can finish up in line with that April board, because you get a big drop off as you go to June. But still, guys in the Midwest are already buying their grass calves, and that's where the competition is on those 5 and 6 weight calves, because they will be turning those cattle out in Flint Hill pastures and things like that early in the spring. And the guys that need a lot of those, if they don't get started this early, they're going to be behind, because there'll just be a big rush on those cattle, and then the supplies will run out on them. But some of your lighter heifers in Joplin were as much as $8 lower. You look at an individual quote on Monday that we don't talk about very often. Platte Valley Livestock in Gearing, Nebraska had a big string of big steers. 301 head of steers weighed 904 at 150.85. That's your feeder flash for Tuesday.